That night in London changed my life twice. Once when I was 13, once when I was 43. Same man, same gift, 30 years apart. But what he gave me the second time. That is what saved my soul. I am standing on the Lyceum theater stage, 15,000 voices singing with me, when suddenly I stop. The music continues, but my voice catches in my throat. There is something I need to tell them about the man who made all this possible. The man I never forgot, never stopped looking for. The man whose gift turned a poor boy from Trenchtown into me. You want to know how one guitar can change the world? Let me take you back to where it all started. Trenchtown, 1948. Picture this. I am 13 years old, walking through the dustiest, most broken part of Kingston. My stomach empty, my shoes held together with wire, my heart heavy with the kind of poverty that makes you question. If tomorrow's worth seeing, that is when I heard it. Music floating from a little wooden schoolhouse. Every Saturday, this sound would call to me. Piano notes dancing with children's voices, creating something beautiful, in a place where beauty was hard to find. For weeks, I just listened from outside, too scared to go in, too poor, too different, too everything. But there was something about that music that pulled at my chest, made me feel like maybe I belonged somewhere after all. One Saturday in April, I finally gathered the courage. My hand trembling, I pushed open that schoolhouse door. The music stopped. 15 pairs of eyes turned toward me. The light-skinned boy who didn't fit anywhere. That is when I first saw him. Joseph Thompson was tuning an old guitar, his weathered hands moving with the kind of gentleness that comes from years of creating beauty despite hardship. He looked up at me with eyes that didn't judge, didn't question why I was there. He just smiled. "You come for the music, young man?" His voice was warm like Sunday morning sunshine. I nodded, suddenly feeling smaller than ever. "Then come in. Music don't care about nothing but the heart that makes it." The gift that changed everything here is what nobody tells you about life. Changing moments. They don't always feel life, changing when they happen. They feel quiet, simple, almost ordinary. That is how it felt when Mr. Thompson handed me that 3-string guitar. "This old thing's been waiting for the right hands," he said, watching as I held it awkwardly. "Show me what you know." I had to admit, I knew nothing. My fingers were clumsy, uncertain. The strings hurt. But something inside me recognized this instrument, like it had been calling my name my whole life. Mr. Thompson spent the next 2 hours teaching me 3 chords, C, G, D, the foundation of 1,000 songs, though I didn't know it then. What I did know was that for the first time in my life, I was creating something beautiful with my own hands. When the lesson ended, other children filed out into the street. I started to hand the guitar back. "Keep it," he said. My eyes went wide. "Sir, I don't have money. I am not selling it, Robert. I am giving it to you. But I need you to promise me something." I would have promised him anything. "Promise me you'll let the music out. There is something special in you, boy. Don't let the world convince you otherwise." That night, I held that guitar like it was made of gold. My mother complained about the noise. The neighbors shook their heads. But I practiced until my fingers bled, until the chords became as natural as breathing. Every Saturday, I returned to Mr. Thompson's class. Every Saturday, he taught me more. Not just chords and songs, but something deeper. He taught me that music could be a voice for the voiceless, a hope for the hopeless. "Music is truth, Robert," he'd say. "And truth is the most powerful force in this world." The day he disappeared, but here is what I didn't know about Mr. Thompson. He was carrying a pain heavier than any of us children could understand. His wife had died the year before. Every Saturday teaching us music was his way of keeping her memory alive. In 1950, that pain became too much. On our last Saturday together, Mr. Thompson's eyes were different. Sadder, somehow more final. "Children," he said after our session, "sometimes life takes us different directions. But music stays with you forever." I felt something cold in my stomach. "You are leaving, Aren't you, Mr. Thompson? He knelt down to my level, placed his hand on my shoulder. Keep playing, Robert. You have something the world needs to hear. Promise me you won't give up. Will you come back? The silence stretched between us like a wound. I don't know, son, but if I don't remember this, the music isn't in the guitar, it is in you. Monday morning, the schoolhouse was empty. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, still empty. By Friday, we all understood. Mr. Thompson was gone. I never saw him again, until 30 years later on a stage in London, when he called out my name and made 15,000 people cry. London, 1978, the Lyceum Theatre, was electric that night. The Exodus tour was at its peak, and London had embraced reggae music like a long-lost love. Standing on that stage, looking out at 15,000 faces from every corner of the world, I felt the weight of how far we'd come. We opened with positive vibration, moved through Exodus. Had the crowd singing every word to jamming. The energy was pure magic, that connection between performer and audience that makes everything else disappear. But something was pulling at me that night. Maybe it was being so far from Jamaica, or maybe it was the way the spotlight made me feel simultaneously seen by everyone and completely alone. Whatever it was, I found myself thinking about beginnings, about the people who shape us before we even know we're being shaped. That is when I decided to stop the music. The band kept playing, but I stepped to the microphone and held up my hand. Slowly, the instruments faded. 15,000 voices quieted. You could hear the silence settle over the theater like snow. I want to tell you about a man, I began, my voice carrying across that vast space. A man who changed my life when I was just a boy in Jamaica. His name was Joseph Thompson. I told them about Trenchtown, about the little schoolhouse, about the 3-string guitar, about a teacher who saw potential in a poor mixed-race kid when nobody else would. He gave me my first guitar 30 years ago, I continued. Told me the music was inside me, just waiting to come out. Everything you see here tonight, the music, the message, the movement, it all started with that man's belief in a 13-year-old boy. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. I never got to thank him properly. Never got to show him what his gift became. Mr. Thompson, wherever you are in this world, if you can hear my voice, this is all because of you. That is when I heard it. A voice from the back of the theater, shaky with age but unmistakable to my heart. Robert. The moment that changed everything again, I shaded my eyes against the stage lights, trying to see into the darkness of the theater. 15,000 heads turned toward the back row. Robert, I am right here. My heart stopped that voice. After 30 years, I knew that voice. Where are you? I called out, my voice breaking. Here, in the back. It is me, Mr. Thompson. The crowd erupted, not in cheers, but in that collective gasp that happens when people witness something miraculous. Security was already moving, helping an elderly man make his way through the crowd toward the stage. I jumped down from the stage before they could bring him up. I couldn't wait. 30 years of gratitude, 30 years of wondering, 30 years of carrying his gift in my heart. It all collapsed into this one moment. When I reached him, we just stared at each other. He was smaller than I remembered, frailer, with silver hair and lines around his eyes. But those eyes, they were the same eyes that had seen potential in a scared boy from the ghetto. Is it really you? I whispered. It is me, Robert. I never knew. I never knew you became this. I wrapped my arms around him, and we both started crying. 15,000 people watched two men, one famous, one forgotten, hold each other like father and son. You gave me everything. That guitar, that belief, that love. You saved my life, Mr. Thompson. No, Robert, he said, pulling back to look at my face. You saved your own life. I just showed you the door. You are the one who walked through it. The song that completed the circle, I helped him onto the stage, the crowd giving us a standing ovation that lasted 5 full minutes. Under the lights, I could see how time had weathered him, but I could also see something else, Pride, pure, overwhelming pride. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced to the crowd, "this is Mr. Joseph Thompson. This is the man who started it all." Another wave of applause washed over us. "Mr. Thompson," I said, turning to him, "do you remember the first song you taught me?" His eyes lit up. "This little light of mine. Will you sing it with me one more time?" He looked nervous. "Robert, I haven't sung in 20 years. Neither had I when you first taught me, but you said music stays with you forever. You said it is inside us." I nodded to the band, and they began to play softly. I started singing the song that had taught a 13-year-old boy he had something worth sharing with the world. At first, Mr. Thompson's voice was hesitant, rusty with disuse. But as we sang together, his voice grew stronger. 15,000 people watched a teacher and his student complete a circle that had been 30 years in the making. When we finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the theater, not in the crowd, not on the stage, not in my heart. The rest of the story after the concert, we talked for hours backstage. I learned that Mr. Thompson had moved to London after leaving Jamaica, worked as a janitor to survive. Never touched music again because the memories were too painful. He had no idea that little Robert from Trenchtown had become Bob Marley before he left that night. I did something that I'd been wanting to do for 30 years. I wrote him a check, not as charity, but as payment for a debt I could never fully repay. For the guitar, I told him. For the lessons, for the belief. He tried to refuse, but I insisted. "You gave me my life, Mr. Thompson. Let me give you some comfort in yours." For the next 3 years, every time I played London, Mr. Thompson had a front row seat. Every time, I introduced him to the crowd. Every time, I made sure the world knew that this quiet, humble man was the reason Bob Marley existed. When I died in 1981, Mr. Thompson came to my funeral in Jamaica. His first time back in 31 years. He stood with my family and wept. He lived until 1992, another 11 years after I was gone. At his funeral, they played my music and told the story of the teacher who gave a poor boy a guitar and accidentally changed the world. The truth about gifts here is what I learned that night in London. The most powerful gifts aren't the ones we give, but the ones we remember. Mr. Thompson had forgotten the impact of his kindness, but I had carried it with me every single day for 30 years. That 3-string guitar didn't just teach me to make music. It taught me that someone